I'm starting to record this. Buyer, I think I called this Buyer Contracts Part 1. I think that's what I called it. And that's what I'm probably going to talk about that. All right, Buyer Contracts Part 1. Now, the first place to start is in the multiple listing service. This may seem counterintuitive, but if you've logged into the MLS, and let me just make sure I'm still logged in. So if you've logged into the MLS, what you want to do, and for our people in Santa Rosa, I'm not entirely sure how this works up there, but I'll be there next week, and I would figure it out. I'm sure there's a similar situation, but you see where it says My Info? You click on that, and it's going to ask you to log in again because it just is not. All right, so let me just do that. And then, so we logged into the MLS. And we go to the dashboard. How about this? We go to the Pro button. All right, and we go to My Info. You realize, of course, you're going to be going to Your Info, not My Info. And what we want to do is scroll down where it says Business Information, and you want to make sure there is a NRDS number, an NRDS number. Right? If you are logged in and you look at that and there is no NRDS number, we need to fix that. And the way we would fix it is, first of all, you need to know your NRDS number. And I believe the association rules are that you're supposed to have that tattooed someplace visible to, that's probably not right. You won't ever use it other than once or twice. So, and by the way, in some associations, instead of using your BRE number as your MLS ID, they use the NRDS number. So some people, I mean, that may be true up in Santa Rosa, they might say, well, we all know our NRDS number because we have to type it in every time, but I'll bet a cookie, a brownie, that that no one here knows their NRDS number. Right, no one's memorized it, right? No, I wouldn't either. So how would we find our NRDS number? You go to Google and you type in, how would I find my NRDS? Now, oh, look what pops up. Apparently, we're not the first ones that have done this. Now, what you're going to find is the first one. They actually have updated this. Isn't that nice? Google is evolving. So we click on the link, and you're going to get a, where do I find my NRDS number? And if you scroll down, actually what I would rather do is we're going to click on the second one that says retrieve NRDS number. And the second one. So if we scroll down, what it wants to know is our last name and our BRE number. Most of you can handle that, right? Your last name and your BRE number. So you put in your last name and your BRE number and you click on get your NRDS number. You then copy the NRDS number, you go to business information, edit, and you paste in your NRDS number. And then you save, and then you're done with the MLS part. Is that all right? Now, the question is, the other reason that you might want to be in the MLS is I'm going to click on Matrix. Does anybody have a house you'd like to see an offer written on that's in the MLS? That's good. I'm getting several suggestions for those who are online. Over and over again, people are calling out too many.
I have one. 217 Cleveland Avenue.
All right. Is this a single family home? Oh,
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, $13. What was the number?
217.
None. There's nothing. That's 217 Cleveland. Let's just look at what's in Cleveland. That's all right.
my
So
God.
I have, boy, there's a lot of Clevelands. There's 13 Clevelands, but I don't see a 217 Cleveland, and they're all over the place. How come I'm all over the world in the search here? So do you have any that's in like our part of the world? So how about this? I'm just going to pick, um, which one, what was the address that you?
Doris Avenue.
Doris.
Yeah.
All right, Doris Avenue, 5.
Why didn't it show up? That's so weird.
I don't know, it's not, is it an active listing on the MLS?
It was active and then it's canceling today.
Well, I don't know, which one?
Oh.
Last
All
one.
right, so let's say Vera wants to write an offer on this one. If she had paid me money, I would have logged in as Vera and done it, but we're going to do this as an example. I'll print it out. It wouldn't hurt you to do it. What we want is this MLS number, right? And we want it with the ML81. We want the ML. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm just going to stick it in the notepad for now, because there's other things that we're going to need to copy, all right? You'll see what I mean in a minute. So now we have in a place where we've copied it and can easily retrieve it, the multiple listing service number. We put in our NERDS number. We're now going to go into the car.org, and we're going to go down to Zip Forms Access Now. You can download a version of the program, which you can install on your desktop, and that means you could write offers and even do a class when the CAR site is down. You could even do that if you have that. If you don't, you have to wait for the class to, anyhow. So we have a connection. And Brandy loves it when she likes it when she sees me dying in front of people. She's like, this is like, yeah. All right, so here we are, and there's an NAR call for action. So what we want to do is, so tip number 1 is make sure you have your NRDS number in your information in MLS. You're going to see why. Question.
On the MLS, your contact information, you should put the company address or your.
I don't know. I don't care. They know the company you work for. I'm not going to go through how to fill out my information on MLS today, right? But you can, I don't know, right? Fill it out. If they ask for the company address, put it in if you want to. I don't know if I did or not.
Sorry, after you put the number, what do you do?
You hit the button that says retrieve my NRDS number.
Yeah, I already have it and put it
Copy
there.
it, right? So then is there a save button or not?
Yes, I said.
Saved it, but then now we're done for the moment,
Okay.
right? We go to the car.org.
Okay.
Which open up in another tab. You want the this, by the way, is going to save you a whole lot of time. The first 3 things I'm going to tell you how to do will save you a whole lot of time. It would take me probably less than 5 minutes to write an offer, right? And that's because I've already got most everything set up. And I'll show you what that means, because most of the typing part is very small if you have everything set up in the first place. All right, so NRDS number, you know the MLS number of the property. This doesn't work if it's off market because there's none of that on the MLS. So we're going to go over here and we're going to click on where it says new, create new. And it's going to ask us what is it called. And for the name, I typically put in the address of the property as opposed to the name of the buyer. And the reason is if you put down the Smiths and then they make an offer on the property and then it's not accepted and then you have to open up another, you understand what I'm saying, then it comes again. So I usually put down the address of the property. So I'm going to call this Doris. Is it a listing purchase? It's a purchase. It's residential, and then you see this guy down here where you click on it. This is templates, right? Now, I'm going to start from blank because I don't know if you have a template or not, right? So I'm going to assume you don't have a template, and I'm going to show you how to make a template. So one of the things you could do is you could just say up here, how about this? You could call this buyer template, right? If you want to. I don't really care, but why don't we do that for fun? And we're going to click save. Now, it's kind of tedious to go through the whole process of making a template. Why are you laughing?
Because you're like, well, we could, but I don't really care.
I don't really care. Now, so what?
I enjoy you.
My medicine, my meds have kicked in. You want me to? I'm not angry and throwing things at people today.
Nice.
Not yet. So we're making a template. All right. Now, I'm not going to go through. I'm going to show you what needs to be done to create a template, but I'm not going to go through all the time-consuming pieces. All right. Just because I got a life. So what we're going to do in our template, the first thing we're going to do is add the cover sheet. The second thing, so let's see, time savings, how to write an offer quickly. Number one, NRDS number and MLS. Number two, make a template. Number three, use the cover sheet. So we've got a cover sheet, and what we're going to do is open it, and we're going to scroll down to where we find selling broker information, which is someplace. Property escrow, selling broker information. And so what you want to do is you want to fill all this out. So you would say KW. See, it's hard for me to do this on the standing things, which is why I'm not going to do the whole thing. KW, Silicon City. And you put in the address. And notice how it's good. Mission College Boulevard, Mission Collegee, Santa Clara. See, it's founded. Now, the broker BRE number is probably something you have to memorize. Right? I would have to look it up too. I've already created a template. So I'm assuming that you're going to find out what that is. When I open up one of my real templates, I'll have it. Opie would know, Laura would know, somebody here knows. You type it in. You put in the city, the state, the zip. I don't bother to put in the office phone number because I don't want people easily finding Matt to call and complain about me. Right, I want to make it hard for them to complain. So if they want to call and complain to Matt and Opie, they have to look up the phone number of the office to do it, right? Because I know most agents are too lazy that they'll give up when they don't see the phone number right away and I'll do it later. You want to put in your name right here where it says sales agent's name, your name, and your BRE number. All right. And does anybody, I skip fax number. I put in my cell phone number, and it's very important you put in your email address. Now, the reason we're doing this is we want to fill this out pretty much as completely as possible. If you want to put in the fax number, I guess we have a fax, I guess we do, right? But I haven't gotten the fax in a really long time. So once we fill this out, what this means is in the template, we don't have to do it every time. So the next time we're writing an offer, we pick the buyer template. It's already got our name, all of our information is filled out. We don't have to do that. Now, by the way, this takes me longer than writing the contract, right? Filling that out. Is everybody with me? Now, guess what we're going to do for our listing template? How about filling out not this part, but this part? Right? You understand? So we want to create two templates, one for listing, one for buyers. And what we want to do is make sure that we fill out one time everything here. All right, and then we're going to save it. Okay, is everybody with me so far? So we're going to save it. Now what we're going to do is we're going to load up the forms that we're going to need. And I have a list, but I'm going to go through the forms. This is a buyer template, so we're going to have a residential purchase agreement. If this were a listing template, I would have the residential listing agreement. What else do we need that's on this list? As we scroll down, there's an agent visual inspection disclosure, which if you're lazy, you could go ahead and do it now, right? Because if you do close, you're going to need one. Isn't that right? You're supposed to do an AVID every time. So I'm going to click on that. Agents inspection disclosure, agriculture, application to rent. There's a lot of junk here. Arbitration, broker. So some people I know put in buyer material issues as a form that I've used and might scare you, and it's not on Laura's checklist. However, I've known lawyers that have wanted it, but I'm not going to tell you to do it. Buyer inspection advisory. Many real estate agents add this in as a form, which is bad form because it's already part of the purchase agreement. And if I'm a listing agent, it irritates me if you give me 2 or 3 copies of the same form and ask me to have my client sign it. My first thought is, didn't your clients ask you, why am I signing 2 or 3 copies of the same form? And I don't really care what your answer was. I don't want to try to explain to the seller why I'm having them sign 2 copies of the same form. Otherwise, I have to say the buyer's agent's an idiot and sent me multiple copies of the same form and we're signing them just to make her or him happy. I would rather not have to do that, right? You understand? So what my suggestion is, don't give them multiple copies of the same form and ask them to sign it. And the buyer inspection advisor is already there. Buyer inspection elections. The meds are wearing off, obviously. Buyer inspection elections is a on the list form and buyer's inspection waiver. So if we're going to write an offer, we ought to at least mention to them there's such a thing as a property roof and chimney, foundation. There's all these inspections. Do you want any? If they don't want any, they should sign the waiver. Now, there's a whole bunch of stuff, but we're only going to add the ones we need to. Carbon monoxide notice, okay, I understand. I see that a lot too. It's contained in almost every natural hazard disclosure, and it's also part of the transfer disclosure statement. So, yeah, I don't know. If you want to, you could, but most NHD companies include a carbon monoxide disclosure, and of course you already know that it's included on page 3 of the residential purchase agreement, right? You already knew that, and it's on page 2 of the transfer disclosure statement, right? You already knew that. So, and it's in the NHD, so I'm not sure we're going to do that again. I should have asked Laura, does she like to see it? I don't know. What else do we want to put in here? Let me see, what does Laura care about? The ones I care about are market conditions advisory, right? Market conditions advisory, which virtually every office requires as part of their checklist. And essentially what the market conditions advisory does is it tells the buyer they're an idiot for making an offer the way we've told them to. That's what it says. It says, we know your agent has told you this is how to make an offer, but you're an idiot for following their advice. And it doesn't actually use that language, but it basically says you should not make an offer without a loan contingency, you should not make an offer without an inspection contingency, you should not make an offer without an appraisal contingency, and bad things are going to happen if you do. That's what it says. And it says that if you choose this route, you're doing so against the advice of the real estate agent, which, considering you're the one who brought it up in the first place, that's how they ought to write the offer, seems a little bit contradictory. I've had people say, well, how do you explain that to clients? And I say, the lawyers, this is what I actually have said to people. The lawyers tell us that you, as a buyer, should self-discover the system on your own. And what that means is you should lose 2 or 3 homes and figure it out yourself. Now, we could go that route, or I could just tell you that if you write an offer with all the contingencies and there's any competition, it's not going to be accepted and you're not going to get the house you want. Right? But I'm required to get you to sign this piece of paper that says, I told you not to do that. Do you understand? And everybody says, yeah, we get it, and they sign the form. Right? Now, by the way, as the market shifts, this will become a more important form. Statewide buyer and seller advisory is usually, it's on every transaction coordinator's checklist. I'm going to click it, although I would be careful. And the reason I would say you want to be careful about the statewide buyer and seller advisory is that the listing agent most of the time already has provided one for you. And again, if you send one, if you have your buyers sign their own and you send it to the listing agent, what you're basically asking for is that everybody sign copies of the same form differently, right? That we both, and that just is irritating, right? You understand? I've already given you a copy of the statewide buyer and seller advisory that my clients have signed. Why didn't you just sign it and give it back to me? Why are you giving me another copy of the form signed by your buyers to ask my client? You understand? I get, it's like, why are they doing this, right? And the obvious answer is they didn't pay attention and they just went through and did all the forms, right? You understand? What I'm saying is most of the time the listing agent is going to give you a copy of this. If they give you a copy of it, don't give them another blank copy back. Right, you understand? But sign the one they gave you. All right, anything else here I wanted? She likes the notice of the supplemental tax bill, she being Laura. And since, so why not? Notice of your supplemental property tax bill. I don't disagree with her. It's something that I would maybe mention. But does everybody understand that proration, and by the way, this is the issue about the supplemental tax bill. Proration in escrow is based upon the current assessed value. So let's say I have a house that I bought 5 years ago for $500,000. How much can the assessment be increased in any given year? What's the percentage? 2%. Has properties increased more than 2% in the last 5 years?
Yes.
Yes, more like 20% a year. So the current assessment is $550, and I'm selling the house for $975. The seller has paid the property taxes based upon $550, but the day the buyer takes possession is going to create a supplemental tax period. So what they're going to do is they're going to say, well, the seller paid to the end of the year based upon $550, but now, I forget the number I said, $975. Now we're going to, and you're going to get a bill, you being the buyer, for that difference. You think that's a surprise to some people, right? I've had agents say, well, doesn't escrow explain that to them? No. Escrow explains the proration in escrow, but not future tax implications of owning the property. And you understand, I'm not saying that there isn't a form that they give people.
My mother would.
But you understand that's not normally what's explained to them. And then they get this bill a couple of months later and they're calling you up, screaming at you because you never told them. All right, are we cool? So now that we've done this, we're going to go up here someplace. That's about the thing all I want to put on our list. Buyers are later than NHD. FERC, I don't like to do that either. All right, so now that we've done all these, we're going to go over here and we're going to click on the back button. I don't know, buyer template. I didn't click on it right, but what I want to do is I want this to go away. And I want to go over here to transaction, it's an active. How come I'm going to go over here to templates. So this, if I go over here and I click on buyer template, It's been a while since I'm going to click on templates. And what I'm going to do is create a new template. Notice I already have one that's called a template. How do I, so is this one that I did, this is an older one I did. So that one I didn't put a lot of stuff in it. Let me go back up here. Buyer, am I under templates again? Transactions, templates. And I'm looking for the save as parties checklist history, collaborate, copy, send, save as PDF, that's not it. Apply template, that's not it. Okay, let me think about this for a second. I want that to go away for a moment. Sort, organize, that's the list. Add documents, add folder, delete, print to parties, check the services history. I don't know. I've mystified myself as to how to create a template. Maybe it's easier if we go to templates and we click on new and we call it buyer 2, because I've already done this. We say it's a purchase template and it's a residential template, and we can click on this and we could apply an existing template and save. So I guess it would be better to do that. There is a way of saving something as a template. And I'm not entirely sure right now where it is. I'm just not. But that will be something that you guys can work on later. All right? Because I know I've done this before, because I clicked it. I know there's a place to do it. All right. So apply template, add documents, parties, property, checklist, services. I just don't see any way to save this as a template. But I'm going to have to think about this. All right, so enough of that. One of you could search, somebody could search and let me know how to do that again, but I don't know. I don't know. Folders, is that it? Active, inactive, transaction status. I don't know. I can't believe that it's not popping up right away. All right, so let's go back to transactions. Obviously, if you started with templates, you can create a new, here we go, import is a way we could create, once we've created, so one way to do this, let's say you've already done a transaction and you went to the trouble of typing in all of your information and all that sort of stuff, you can import the transaction into the templates as a template. All right, so we're just going to press on. So, and I'll admit that there are sometimes SAMPLE 62016, and this will be a purchase, and it's going to be residential, and we're going to apply the template called buyer. And you'll notice some of my templates, one of them is St. Anne, which is a buyer side I closed. Another one is Dearborn, which is a seller side I closed. And I'm an extremely lazy or efficient person, and so I just took those two transactions and made them templates, right? So I don't have to do it every time. So what we're going to do is, and boy, there's a lot of, this one has a lot of stuff in it. We're going to open up the residential purchase agreement, and we're going to go all the way to the top, and we're going to go to transaction information. And we're going to click on that. And there's another button here we could have done. See where it says MLS Connect? If I go back, let me show you. Sometimes it works better for transaction. See where it says MLS Connect up there? And then it also says MLS Connect where it says transaction information. Sometimes I found that the import from the MLS button isn't there. I don't know why. And sometimes I have to, if you go to transaction information, it's always there. So I'm going to do that. And what I'm going to do is now I'm going to click on MLS Connect. Now, if you've clicked on MLS Connect and you do not see anything written down next to the MLS name, nothing is in there, something is wrong with the system, right? Either the typical reason is you didn't put your NRDS number in the MLS information. If you did it 5 minutes ago, it may not have updated with the CAR form system. If you wait till tomorrow and it still isn't there, you have to call the Association of Realtors, of which you are a member, and you're going to say to them, my MLS does not connect with CAR forms, and they're going to say, have you put your NRDS number in the My Information, the MLS? You're going to say, yes, I have. Then they'll say, oh, okay, well, no, we'll take a look at it, right? So if this is really important for time saving and accuracy. What we're going to do, remember that MLS number? Remember Doris? Remember Doris MLS number? We're pasting it in here. I sometimes click on include property photo. It doesn't, the clients don't see it, but it puts a nice little thumbnail picture next to the transaction. I'm not really sure why I do this other than I do it. I click on find, and now the system is looking up that MLS number. And what will happen if and when it finds it, it's going to fill out this information here. Notice it's a beautiful house. We want to see a picture of it anyhow. It fills out this information here, and now we click on import. And this is asking, do I want to, it always is going to say, do you want to replace what you put in with this? And we're going to say yes. And it's been imported successfully. And now I might just save this now for why, I don't know why, but I'm doing it. And I'm clicking on back, and it's taking its time. Now what it's done, where is the, I didn't put in a worksheet on this one, a cover sheet. Really? I didn't do a cover sheet? Let me just see. All right, so you always want to have the cover sheet. So how many tips have I given you? One, make sure your NRDS number is in My Information. Number two, create a template. Make sure all of your contact information is filled out on the cover sheet. Number three, write most of the offer on the cover sheet. Write most of the offer on the cover sheet. So notice the buyer's information is not here because that's not in the MLS. So we're going to say it's our buyer is Billy Buyer, and you don't need to tell the listing agent where the buyer lives or their phone number or anything like that. Don't do it. Don't tell them. There was a real estate agent from another company, I won't mention their name, but it was RE/MAX. And what he was doing is he would put properties in the MLS at about 50% of their value, right? Like 50% of their value. And then he would get a stack of offers. And then he would go through and start contacting all the buyers he would find all the ones that had the information on the buyers, and he'd contact the buyers and try to get that to work with him. Isn't that nice to know? So
You can't do it, right? I mean, didn't an agent enter that information?
that's true, but this was an offer that was not being accepted, and the agent told the listing agent the name and phone number of their buyer.
Right,
So he called. Yeah, but he would say, well, you know, that your agent isn't doing a very good job because you didn't get your offer accepted, and you know, I'll give you a rebate, and I mean, so don't do it, right? You understand? Don't tell them any of that. It's okay to put in the buyer's email address, billy@buyer.com. That, by the way, does not move over into the purchase agreement. You understand? In the purchase agreement, it does have contact information of the buyer, but not their email address. There's a reason you want their email address in the system, right? But the listing agent won't see it. I've done a class where I've printed out the cover sheet and just went through marking which things actually get imported into the purchase agreement. Right? People find that interesting because there's a whole bunch of stuff in the cover sheet that never gets imported anywhere. So people would say, well, why do they have all those stuff if it never gets imported in any of the forms? And the answer is that there was a time that real estate agents used to carry around paper files. Really? No, they did. And so what agents would do is they would print out the cover sheet and it would have all of these names and phone numbers in it. And they would use that because they would go to the payphone and put in, change and read and call people, right? But we don't do that anymore. Isn't that right? I haven't seen a payphone. So now look what happened. Notice the name of the seller is in the form. How did it get there? Because we used MLS Connect. We keep scrolling, look at all this information about the properties in the form. It's put in the MLS number, the address, the city, the state, the assessor's parcel number, the listing date, the listing price. We don't know what the expiration date is, but that's on the listing. It put in washer, dryer. It put in stuff that's on the form. Would that save us a lot of time from printing out the MLS, pulling up the sheet, and typing in all of that information? Do you understand? This is why you can write an offer in 5 minutes, because if all of that stuff is already in the form, what else? Price, how much is the loan, how much is the down payment, when is the expiration, the rest of it is really kind of easy. Well, it could be. So purchase price is the price that you're offering. Purchase price is the price that you're offering. How much are we offering on this one, Carol?
599.999 plus like 5,000.
All right, how about 605? Should I do 888? No, 605. So when I clicked the tab, it went to purchase agreement date and a calendar popped up. The day you write it is the purchase agreement date. Even if your clients aren't going to sign it till tomorrow, you click on that date. Closing date, this is if you know the date, right? In the purchase contract, it gives you an option of 30 days. You can click that and type in 30 days. I have found it's safer to pick a date. The reason is that 30 days, now the contract says if it's a holiday, it's the next business day. If it's a Saturday or Sunday, it's the next business day. I actually have a class. Didn't I do a class one time where I asked people to guess what day it was, guess the date, right? So could it be difficult? Could agents have a different calculation of what 30 days means, right? You think that's hard to believe, but it's true. Would it be better if we just picked a day? So if this is going to be a 30-day close, we're going to go here to July, and I kind of like something like a Tuesday, right? Maybe Wednesday. And my logic is sometimes stuff doesn't happen, right? And if I pick Friday, is it possible the lender's going to something, right? Roberta has a transaction where escrow is supposed to close on Friday, and it might not. Now, what does that do? That stuff scheduled for the weekend, but it may not close. By the way, that's a whole nother form set, right? It's a whole nother form set when you let the buyer in to do stuff, and it hasn't closed, right? So do you understand? Is it possible? So if it doesn't close on Friday, we're talking about Monday. Right? And the buyer may, by the way, get upset because in order for it to close on Monday, when does it have to fund?
On Monday. On Friday.
Friday. Usually it funds the previous day. Usually it funds the day before closing, so now they're paying interest over the weekend. Some cheap engineer is going to get a calculator and figure out what that is and say, well, I'm paying $600. Or something like that because you screwed up I want you to give me the $600 back, right? Yeah, you understand? So I like to pick Tuesday, Wednesday. It gives us a couple of days in case something goes wrong. And by the way, the 30 days is 30 days from acceptance. Do we know at this moment what day acceptance is going to be? It could be tomorrow, it could be 3 days, it could be, so then, if we don't like it to be on a Monday, because our clients are fussy and they have a calculator and they're cheap, then we have to write an addendum asking to change the close of escrow date. My theory was I wanted to do as little of that stuff as possible, right? You understand, writing addendums is time consuming, boring, I don't want to do it if I don't have to, right? So I would pick a day, nice smack in the middle of a week, right? What is your deposit amount? It's customary today to do 3%. And so this calculator doesn't work very well, the one they have, but if we say 605 times 0.03 is 18,150. 18,150, we hit tab and we go on. We don't do increases in deposits. It was typical if we put down, the old days, you put down a 1% deposit and then raise the deposit to 3% when you remove the loan contingencies. I'll bet we go back to that sometime, but not right now. It's not the thing. Offer date, that's a different day than the purchase agreement date. The offer date is the date that the buyer signed the offer. And it's the date the buyer signed the offer. So do you understand, that could be the same day. But you might be, I helped an agent at midnight, I'm not recommending this, write an offer, they weren't signing that night, right? So the purchase date was one day, the offer date is the next day. Right? You get the idea? Most of the time it's the same day. We're going to assume it's the same day. Expiration date, if we don't do anything to that, what it's going to do, the default setting is 3 days to accept the offer. That's what it says, 3 days. Now, a question is, do you want to give the seller 3 days to think about your offer? Right? Not necessarily, right? You understand? Because if I'm the listing agent, I might say, well, agents are still calling, right? And now, by the way, the buyer can revoke the offer until it's been accepted and the acceptance has been communicated back. So the buyer can still back out, which, by the way, is not always a good thing either, right? So you could shorten it. If you click in expire date, notice a calendar pops up. We pick tomorrow. My old cash guy used to give him like 2 hours. He's like, what do I have to think about? 2 hours. Here it is, all cash, no contingencies. We close in 10 days. You got 2 hours. Let me know. Right? Right? How long do they have to think about that? They look at the price, yes or no. Right? So they don't need 3 days, but I'm just saying, if you don't do anything, that's the default. You could change the time. What is the default time in the purchase agreement?
Midnight.
That's right. It's 5 o'clock p.m. That's what the default time is. By the way, have any of you heard me make the suggestion that you ought to read the purchase contract aloud like a whole bunch of times? Like maybe every day you ought to read it aloud. Get somebody you don't like and tell them that you've been instructed to do this and you wanted them to listen, and see how long you can keep them at that. But would it be a good idea that you knew what the contract said? So I'm not going to change the time, but you might want to change the time because you might say, I'm going to give you till midnight tomorrow, right, or whatever. Right? But I'm not going to do that. Offer acceptance date, we don't have that yet. Right? We don't know yet. And then you can say it's a multi, and you could do stuff like that. It doesn't actually import. Escrow information doesn't go anywhere really. You can put it in, but if you know the title company, you can put it in. I generally, because I'm efficient, just type in seller's choice if the seller is paying. Right? I get asked often by newer agents, who picks the title and escrow company? Hillary, who picks the title and escrow company?
It depends on the county,
But no, I'm not too much.
the agent, the listing.
The
agent.
listing agent picks the escrow and title company. That's the reality of the world. even in a buyer pay county,
Sometimes,
most of the time, the listing agent has opened escrow,
yes.
correct?
Mhm.
And how often do the buyer's agent wrestle, especially in a multiple offer situation?
Not frequently.
Not frequently. So the bottom line in the seller pay county like Santa Clara, the seller pays, seller pays. Now, some agents are just going to say it's, WFG title. They're just going to say that someplace. Some of them give you copies of prelims, but not always is the prelim issued by that they're giving you a copy of the one that they opened escrow with. Some agents won't tell you. They're secretive about where they've opened escrow. So I would just type in seller's choice. We're not going to do it now, but yeah. So none of this other stuff we don't care about. Selling broker information, I didn't fill out this template, but notice it's imported all the listing broker information. Now, I'm jumping around on templates because I have a bunch of them that I've done pieces with, but you understand if this were our template, we would have already filled out this part. Notice it's filled out that part. We don't have to fill out any, is this going to save you time not to have to type out the listing office, find the listing office BRE number, the address, right? I see agents that spend like 2 hours writing an offer, right? Because they're like researching all this stuff. We don't care about lender, appraiser, title, test, disclosure. We don't care. We just don't care. Right? We just don't care about any of that. I actually, in another office, somebody asked me to do this. I printed out a copy of this cover sheet, and I just went through and circled everything that actually appears somewhere. Right? Because not everything appears somewhere. All right, and so that's the problem with the cover sheet is that if you get the idea that you ought to fill out everything that's in it, about 50% of what you're typing in appears nowhere on any form. Right? You just practiced your typing skills. Yes.
What about contingencies?
Contingencies. Why don't we do that? We're going to talk about that. So what I've done is I've clicked on this and I've gone back, and this one's a mess because this isn't really what I would, but we're going to find the residential purchase agreement and we're going to take a look at it. All right. So this is the residential purchase agreement. The first one is agency disclosure. This box you only check if you're talking about a lease for more than a year. So if you've checked that box, you've probably made a mistake, right? So you don't want to check that box. And what I do is agents ask me often, sometimes not often enough, to read their offers, to read their contracts. And I have this sort of a list that I mentally go through of where people make mistakes. First one is here. Because what they don't do, it says Billy Buyer, but they don't check buyer, seller, land. They don't check anything, right? So a Billy Buyer is a buyer, right? Now, if Billy Buyer is going to sign in person, if I know that Billy Buyer is going to be there and it's going to be there today, and because I didn't fill out the template, it didn't import this one, it didn't import the information. What I'm going to do, should I really do that? So in a real template, it would have had Keller Williams, Silicon City, BRE number, my name and BRE number would be there. I'll have to show you one. You have to trust me. This is what I get for not planning ahead. But let's say I know that Billy Buyer is going to be here today to sign the papers. In person, I'll click on this and put that in just because I think it looks neater than, and now all he has to do is sign one place. My goal is to make it as easy as possible for them to sign the forms. So why make them write in dates if I can just click on it? Now, if we're doing electronic signatures, you don't need to worry about that because the electronic signature already puts in a stamp for the date and time. So you don't have to do that. Right? Do you understand? This is not necessarily a big piece. So it should have filled out all that information. I just didn't do it. All right. Possible representation of more than one buyer or seller. So, by the way, agency disclosure, if I print it out, let me just do this, okay? You should read this a few times. So this is what I say. Let's say this is this form. I've got it out. I would say, all right, the first thing is agency disclosure. We're required by law to go through this form with you. This is not a contract, right? This is simply a disclosure form. And really what disclosure forms are educational forms, right? That's all they are, right? It's like an understanding. So what this form says is that there are 3 possible kinds of agency relationships. So the first one is the listing agent or the seller's agent. That's not us, right? You understand? That's this other, it's Remix, right? You understand? It's Keller Williams, somebody else, right? It's not us. You just need to understand that the agent, even if it's a Keller Williams, somebody else, that agent works for the seller. Their job is to negotiate the highest price and best terms possible for the seller. Don't tell the listing agent anything. Don't talk to them. Don't have conversations, right? If you're the buyer, don't, right? They're supposed to be fair and honest. Then there's the buyer's agent. That's us. We're your agent. Our job is to get you the best price and the best terms possible. We're supposed to be fair and honest to the seller, but we're on your side. You understand that? Then there's a dual agent, and the dual agent is what would happen if you were purchasing one of our office listings. Now, Doris Keller Williams is a franchise, so it's not our listing. So they represent the seller and we represent the buyer. So, but if you were buying one of our office listings, then we, in the royal sense, we would represent both the buyer and the seller. Do you understand? But since you're not buying one of our listings, there's no dual agency. Do you understand? Sign here, right? Now, does that sound like a relatively easy thing to get people to sign? All right. Then the next form is the PRBS. I have people asking me, isn't that a type of contract? That's the PRDS contract, which is not anything like this. And it's possible representation of more than one buyer or seller. Is it possible that our office might have more than one buyer interested in that property? Can you do anything about that? If somebody else from our office wants to make an offer on the property, can you control that? Would that agent tell you what they're offering? No, right? Would you tell them what you're offering? No, right? So, but could a buyer, however, be confused by that? When they realize, because didn't we just say that Keller Williams Realty Silicon City was going to be with their agent? Didn't we just say that? We're your agent, but then it seems like we're also somebody else's agent. You can't represent 2 buyers on the same property. Can't represent 2 buyers on the same property. You can't, right? Do you understand why would both of them want to know what the other one was offering?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell either of them? If you knew how much another offer was, would you tell your buyer? Let's say it's not your offer. Supposing Brandy you heard Brandy tells Hillary, my clients are going to make an $850 offer, and you heard that. And your clients are making the offer, might you feel like, I know at least one offer is going to go into $850. Yeah, right? So she shouldn't tell you and you wouldn't tell her. But you understand, if we are representing both, how can you know what the other offer is, right? You can't represent both. So what you would do is you'd pick the best buyer that you had. This happens if you do an open house and 3 people want to make an offer on the house. You can't write 3 offers on the same house, right? You understand, Matt? First of all, Opie and Laura will have this unhappy look, right? Matt will ask to talk to you, right? You understand? Matt will probably complain to me because he would say, I thought you were teaching these guys something. What the hell is going on? Right? There would be something like that, right? You understand? So you'd pick the best buyer and you would refer the other buyers to somebody else. right? By the way, if you only have two and you're worried, because you might be thinking, well, if I gave Brandy the other buyer, she's going to never give them back, and if she'll sell another house, I would write the other offer for you, right? You understand? So if you have two buyers and you're writing for one and you need somebody to write the second, I'll write the other one. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't want to show them property and would give them back. Yes.
The office can write two offers on this.
Office can write, that's what this says.
Gotcha.
Broker, individually through its associate licensees, may be working with many prospective buyers at the same time. These prospective buyers may have an interest in and make offers on the same properties. Some of these properties may be listed with broker and some may not. Broker will not limit or restrict any particular buyer from making an offer on any particular property, whether or not broker represents other buyers interested in the same property. Now, this form is also used on listings, which is, do you think that we could have multiple sellers in one area? All right, I'll talk about that in listings maybe. But you understand, you list a house for $650 and across the street, same model, sign goes up, $625. And it has our sign on it too. Are your clients miffed at you? Like, what's going on? I'll tell you what makes it really bad is when the sign across the street for $625 has your name on it. I've had that happen. And they're like, hey, what can I say? Would it help you if it was another company? You know.
Is it legal?
Yeah, that's what it says.
What
Then
do you
there's
say?
another, I told them letting somebody else do it isn't going to help you. Because I'm going to tell everybody that your house is worth the 25 more. And the other agent wouldn't say that. Dual agency, could we be represented? This is another thing about dual agency, right? Which you could read. Offers are not necessarily confidential. Did you know that? Did you know that? Now, by the way, one of the things that I would put on my list when I'm representing a buyer, Brandy, would be a confidentiality agreement. So in my buyer consultation, one of the things I would say is, did you know that your offer is not confidential? I use a confidentiality agreement, which I include with the offer, that says you're not allowed to disclose the amount of the offer or who's making the offer. Right? Some people don't care, but does that sound, did you know that? So then they sign here, we go on, right? And how much of this more do I want to do? What, why don't, we've done, this has been, was this fun so far? Mm-hmm. So why don't we're going to stop, and next time what I'm going to do is power through writing an offer, right? And it takes me very little time to actually write one, but it takes me a long time to explain it to people. So I'm going to explain it. It may go for like 2 more sessions. What I'd like to make sure everyone has done by next week, is NRDS number of the MLS, create a buyer template. You saw the list. I have a list here. Laura will give you a list, but this list is everything Laura wants, which isn't all on it. I'll circle the ones that actually you could put, right? You saw me go through it, but I'll make a list of the ones that you could put it in as a template, right?
Can you email out?
Yeah, Laura would have it too. I'll talk to her. I'll tell her we need one, and we're going to be putting stuff on the intranet so you can download them. But I'll make these are the ones that I would add in. It's not a big deal because all you have to do is go to the site and click on it and it adds the form, right? You understand it? So sometimes I don't add all the forms because now I have all these forms I'm not using, which just seems to clutter up the transaction folder. So sometimes I want the cover sheet, right? Because the cover sheet's got my information on it. I don't really worry. The other ones I'll just pick as I go, right? All right. Well, was that fun?
Yes. Thank you.
Always.
I'm not sure that that's the right word for it. So anyhow, that's it. We're gonna all go bowling.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So next week.
More fun.
By the way, Monday and Tuesday I'm going to be in Sonoma County. Right, Monday and
Next week.
Tuesday of next week. the people in Sonoma County are having, maybe not.